Okay, so Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning everyone. So first kali macam biasa, kita test mic dulu, tengok okay ke tak. Rasa macam slow sikit lah. Suara tak buka lagi kot hari ni. Tak lah, dia macam tak apa orang kata tak kak lagi. Okay. So Hafizah dah cakap okay. Okay, Cun. Okay. Right, so let's start then. Okay, so we are at lecture 3 out of 4. So we should be able to finish trigonometric function by next week on Sunday. So once we finish with chapter 7, of course, we are going to start with chapter 8. Okay, so now what are we going to learn today? Right, so we have done trigonometric ratio and identities. We have done compound angle. So today we are going to look at 7.3 solution of trigonometric equation. Okay, so what are the things that we are going to learn today? Okay, so the learning outcome for today is that you should be able to solve the equation such as sine of theta equal to k, cos of theta equal to k, and tangent of theta equal to k, where I normally call them as the linear trigonometric equation. And then you should be able to solve the equation in quadratic form. So we have trigonometric equation in quadratic form. So how to solve them? And then C, you should be able to express sine theta, cos theta, and tangent theta in terms of t. So why we have this C is because we want to use them for the D. Because we want to solve A sine theta plus minus with B cos theta equal to C, where t is equal to tangent theta over 2. Okay, so for the first one, we either have a sine, we either have a cos. So they are two separate things. So either sine of something equal to k, sine cos of theta equal to k. For quadratic, that means we can actually factorize them into 2, and actually both of them, when we factorize, it will go back to the linear, but then we need to solve two linear function. But for D, we have a mixture between the sine and the cos. So it will be very tough for us to solve if we have the sine plus with a cos or a sine minus with a cos. Therefore, we are going to use something called the t substitution, where we are going to let t equal to tangent theta over 2. We're going to change everything in terms of t, and then we're going to solve what is the value for t, and then go back to find out what is the value of theta. So that is basically what we are going to learn today. Okay, so now 7.3 solutions of trigonometric equation. Okay, so the first one, let us refer to the linear equation. Okay, so linear equation, it will be something like sine of theta equal to k. So sine of theta equal to some constant k, or cos of theta is equal to k, or tangent of theta equal to k. So basically, if let's say you have cosecant, cotangent as well as secant, do make sure to change them to become the sine, the tangent, and the cos. So make sure to change it if you have a cosecant, cotangent, as well as secant. Okay, so now, what did we do if we want to solve a linear equation? So the first thing that you have to do is to find the basic angle. Okay, so let's say you have sine of theta equal to k, right? So that means theta is equal to arc sine of k. Okay, so for basic angle, you must be very careful. Are we using a degree or are we using radian? Okay, so how do you know whether do you want to use a degree or do you want to use a radian? That totally depends on the question. So when you read the question, so for example, sine of theta equal to half, do read the question, theta is in between what? If theta is in between 0 and 180 degree, then therefore your basic angle should be in degree as well. If let's say the theta is in between 0 and pi, therefore those are the radian. So we need to change the mode of our calculator depending on the range that is given in the question. So if we have a degree in the question, then our mode will be degree as well. If we have radian in the question, then your basic angle should be in radian as well. So if you see something with a pi, that means a radian. If you see something with a circle at the top, so those means degree. Okay, so once we know what is the basic angle, then the second step is that you have to check which quadrant they are. Okay, so do remember A, S, T, C, hello, star, tu, changlun, all, sign, teacher, blah, blah. Okay, so A, S, T, C, add sugar to coffee. Okay, so what do we know? If we want to get something with a positive answer, then theta is equal to alpha in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, if you want to get your answer in the second quadrant, then it will be 180 minus with alpha. Or if you are using some radian, they should be pi minus with alpha. In the third quadrant, it will be 180 plus with alpha or pi plus with alpha. So those are the difference between the radian and degree. So in degree, we are using 180. In radian, we are using pi. In the fourth quadrant, so we are going to get 360 minus with alpha, or you can actually use 2 pi minus alpha. And then of course, the third step, you have to check your range. So you have to go back to the question and then check whether do you have another period or not. Yes, sebab trigonometric function is a periodic function, so you can have a lots of answer. So that's the reason why we have to check our range just to make sure that we get all the answers. Okay, so note that sine theta is in between -1 and 1. So if you can draw your sine, you should be able to see that the highest value over there is 1 and the lowest value is -1. For the cos, something like this. Of course, the highest one is 1, the lowest is -1. So the same thing actually. But for tangent, tangent can go to infinity. So you don't have those kind of interval for them. Okay, so let's start then how to solve. Let us go to the question and see how. Okay, so the first one, solve the following trigonometric equation. So we got cos of theta equal to half. So this is our range. Theta is in between 0 and 360. Okay, so the first step, we have to find out what is the basic angle. So in order to let the theta as the subject, I'm going to use the arc cos for them. So my alpha is equal to 60, or you can say that alpha is equal to arc cos of half. So arc cos of half, they will give you 60. So those are the basic angle. Okay, second one, we have to check our quadrant. So draw your quadrant. Okay, so A, S, T, C. Okay, do check cos of theta. So what is the value on the right hand side here? Are they positive half or are they negative half? So of course, on the right hand side, this is a positive answer. Like, so we want to find a quadrant where if we use a cos, it will give us a positive answer. So referring to your quadrant, which quadrant will give us a positive value when we substitute the theta? Okay, so it will be either in the first quadrant or they can be in the fourth quadrant. Okay, so I repeat, for the quadrant part, after you draw your quadrant, just write down A, S, T, C, and then do check cos of theta equal to what? So on the right hand side, this value, we want to make sure either they are positive or negative. If they are positive, we are going to find out the positive quadrant. If they are negative, we are going to find out the negative quadrant for them. Okay, so the quadrant for this is the first quadrant as well as the fourth quadrant. So the value formula for them is, for the first quadrant, theta is equal to alpha. For the fourth quadrant, 360 minus with alpha. Right, so now let us see what is theta then. So theta is equal to 60. So this is when theta is equal to alpha. Another one is in the fourth quadrant where we have 360 minus alpha. So the value for this one, 360 minus 60, they are equal to 300. So we just need to make sure that our answer is actually inside of the range. So theta, 0, 360, both of them are actually inside of the range. So this is okay. If let's say we have something that is larger than them, then for here we need to add some more. So kena tambah lagi lah untuk yang theta ni, step yang theta ni. For example, if let's say we have 2 theta, right? So that means you need to do another period for them. So you need to add 360. So nak dapat pusingan yang kedua, we are going to add 360. The second rotation, 360. If let's say you do have something with a minus, then you need to do negative 360. So either plus or minus 360. Okay, next. Solve the following trigonometric equation. So sine theta equal to negative sec 3 over 2. Theta is in between 0 and 360. So basically for our question or for our level, we should have this range. So be very careful. You need to make sure everything is within this range. Okay, so now the basic angle first. So alpha is equal to arc sine. Okay, so normally for me, if I want to find the basic angle, I don't include the negative sign. So I just use whatever the value that I have on the right hand side. So for me, I'm going to use arc sine of sec 3 over 2. The negative simply means the rotation. So instead of going anti-clockwise, they are going clockwise. So that is the reason why I'm ignoring the negative sign over there. Okay, so now we got the basic angle where we have alpha is equal to 60 degree. And then of course, you need to draw your quadrant ASTC. Okay, so sine of theta is equal to a negative answer. So in order to get a negative answer, they cannot be in the quadrant that will give us a positive answer. Okay, so it can either be in the third quadrant or it can be in the fourth quadrant because the first and the second quadrant will give us a positive value. So in order to get some negative answer, the theta should be in the third or the fourth quadrant. Okay, so in the third quadrant, theta is equal to 180 plus with alpha. In the fourth quadrant, they should be 360 minus with alpha. Okay, so based on the range is in between 0 and 360. So it will just be one rotation. So we can directly take whatever theta that we have over here. So the first one is 180 plus with alpha. The second one is 360 minus with alpha. So this is plus alpha minus alpha. So you simplify them a little bit. So you're going to get theta is equal to 240 and 300. Okay, so again, verify that this theta should be in between 0 and 360. If let's say this is 2 theta, then that means over here you need to add some more. Kalau negatif, kena tolak 360. So take each of them and then you simply plus or minus 360 to get the other rotation. Rotation yang kedua lah, clockwise ataupun anti-clockwise tu. Okay, so those are for linear function. Done. Okay, let us proceed to the quadratic form. Okay, so for quadratic equation, what do you need to do? Okay, so the first step, if you have a quadratic function, you should be able to factorize them. But if let's say you got something with cos square theta and then plus with sine theta and then minus with 1, right? So this is still a quadratic, but we have a mixture between the cos and the sine. Therefore, before you factorize them, you might need to use Pythagorean identity. Might need to use identity. Therefore, you need to have your identity ready with you. Okay, so what is the identity? So cos square theta plus sine square theta is equal to 1. And then we actually got another 2, right? Involving the cotangent, cosecant, and secant square, right? Okay, so this is cos square theta plus sine square theta equal to 1. So when you substitute over here, this is 1 minus sine square theta plus with sine theta minus with 1 equal to 0. Then you can easily change everything in terms of sign. So it will look like this, negative sine square theta plus sine theta equal to 0, sorry. And then you can factorize them completely. So what do I mean over here is that if you have a quadratic function and then if let's say you see that both of them are not in the same term, then do make sure to change the square because for our identity, we only change the square, right? Sebab dalam identity, Pythagoras identity tu square saja yang ada. So don't change the sign or the cos or the tangent without the square. The terms without the square, you just leave them alone. You just need to make sure to change the square into something that can be used together with the other one. Okay, so now the first step, we should factorize them. If you couldn't see anything that can be factorized, then most likely you need to use the identity first, change everything into either sine square, cos square, or tangent square, or cotangent square, secant square, or cosecant square, and then make sure to factorize them completely. So you must be able to factorize them completely. And after that, you're going to have two linear function because once you factorize, you will have two linear, right? So you have two linear function and then you got to solve the linear function. So on the left hand side, solve them until you get what is the value for the theta. On the right hand side, solve them until you get the value for the theta. So how to solve? Of course, using what we have learned before this, you need to find out what is the basic angle. You have to check the quadrant, make sure everything is within the range. And then you have to combine your answer. So at the end, just triple dot. Therefore, theta is equal to, take all those values in together. So we must combine all our answer together because this is all. Okay, so done with the notes. Let us proceed with the example. Okay, so solve the following trigonometric equation. So we have 2 sine square theta minus sine theta minus 1 equal to 0. Theta is in between 0 and 360. Okay, so the first step that we have to do is we need to factorize them completely. So do check first. Okay, so this is sine square, this is sine, so that means this is okay. This is a good quadratic function, so I can directly factorize them. Okay, so you can either factorize them using your calculator or you can use the cross method, butterfly method, whatever method that you know, just factorize them completely. Okay, so I already factorized them for you. So I have 2 sine theta plus 1 multiply with sine theta minus 1 equal to 0. So I already factorized them completely and then let us find out what is sine theta. Okay, so sine theta is equal to negative half or sine theta is actually equal to 1. So we got two linear function over here. Either sine theta equal to negative half or sine theta equal to 1. Okay, so now how to solve the linear function? So of course, we have to firstly find out what is the basic angle, check the quadrant, and then check the range as well. Okay, so find out what is the basic angle. So basic angle, alpha is equal to arc sine of half. So alpha is equal to 30. So just in case you didn't know where this come from, so alpha is equal to arc sine. Oops. Arc sine of half. Lupa nak ajar macam nak guna calculator kan. So basically if you are using your calculator, on top of the sine, the cos and the tangent, you should have your arc sine, arc cos and arc tangent. Yang inilah, nak panggil sine minus 1 pun suka lah. Tapi biasa saya panggil arc. Arc sine, arc cos, arc tangent. So you can actually use shift and then sine to get arc sine, shift and cos to get arc cos, shift and tangent to get arc tangent. Okay, so make sure to know how to use your calculator, okay? Alright, so since the theta is in degree, so that's the reason why my alpha is also in degree. So alpha is equal to 30 degree. And then, of course, you need to draw your quadrant A, S, D, C. I want to get some negative for the sign, so a negative sign, so third or fourth. Okay, so just write down the formula first, the third and the fourth. So 180 plus with alpha or 360 minus alpha. Okay, and then we simply take this value here. So theta is equal to 180 plus with alpha, 360 minus with alpha. So theta is equal to 210 or 330. So those are for the left hand side, the final answer on the left hand side. Okay, so now on the right hand side, we have sine of theta equal to 1. Of course, you can also use the same formula over here. But normally for me, if I have sine theta equal to 1, for sine, right? So if I have sine theta equal to 1, if I have sine theta equal to negative 1, or if I have sine theta equal to 0, normally I'll use the graph because that is easier. Okay, so how are you going to get a 0? So to get a 0, it can either be at 0 degree, or it can be at 180 degree, or it can be at 360 degree. So those are to get 0. To get 1, 1 is at the top. So the highest value will be whenever the theta is equal to 90 degree. So to get negative 1, those are the lowest point. So the lowest point will be 270. So normally for me, I just remember those things. If you don't want to remember them, then you might need to firstly calculate what is the basic angle, check the quadrant, and then all those things. But normally for me, I find it easier if I just memorize the graph. Okay, so now sine of theta is equal to 1. So by using the graph, I can directly say that theta will be equal to 90. So straight away, I get the value without calculating the basic angle and etc. Okay, so theta is equal to 90 degrees. So I got my answer on the left hand side here, my answer on the right hand side. Therefore, we will combine them together. So therefore, theta is equal to 90 degree, 210, and then 330. So we got 3 value over there. Okay, done. Next. Okay, so solve the following trigonometric equation. So we have 3 cotangent square theta plus 5 cosecant theta plus 1 equal to 0, and theta is in between 0 and 2 pi. Okay, so do check or do see over here, we do have a pi. So that means the mode in your calculator, they should be in radian. They must be in radian so that you can get a correct answer. Okay, so now check the quadratic form. So I have a cotangent over here. This is cosecant. So they are two different things. So this is not a good quadratic form. So I have to change one of them to make sure either everything is in terms of cotangent or either everything is in terms of cosecant. So we must change them because we want to factorize them further later on. So we must make sure that they are in a good quadratic form. Okay, so now which one do you want to change? Cotangent or cosecant? Okay, so like I told you before, if you have a square, make sure to change the square. Don't change something without the square. Okay, so the square is for the cotangent. So I'm going to change the cotangent into something with a cosecant because I have a cosecant over there. So I need to modify a little bit so that I can have everything with cosecant. Okay, so let us check our identity. So check your identity. Do you have anything to do with cotangent as well as cosecant? Can you change everything into cosecant or not? So the answer is yes. You can actually change everything into cosecant, but you need to use the identity where if we have a cotangent plus with 1, they are actually cosecant. So cotangent will become cosecant square minus with 1. Okay, so change the cotangent square to become cosecant square minus 1. And then, of course, you need to simplify them a bit, just expand them. Okay, so this is 3 cosecant square theta minus 3 plus 5 cosecant theta plus with 1 equal to 0. Simplify them a little bit. The constant need to be with the constant. So negative 3 plus 1, they will become negative 2. So we got 3 cosecant square theta plus 5 cosecant theta minus 2 equal to 0. Okay, so now this is the first step. You need to factorize them completely. So factorize them completely. You should have 3 cosecant theta minus 1 cosecant theta plus 1 equal to 0. Okay, so that means you will have two different equation over there. So either cosecant of theta equal to 1 over 3, or you will have cosecant theta equal to negative 2. So you will have two things. Okay, so now this is a linear function. So for linear, we only learn how to solve for sine, the cos, and tangent. So if you have something with cosecant, cotangent, or even secant, you need to change them to become sine, cos, and tangent. Okay, cosecant. So 1, 2, 3. The third letter is S. So this is 1 over sine. Okay, so cosecant is 1 over sine. So this is 1 over sine theta. So 1 over sine theta is equal to 1 over 3, which simply mean that sine theta is equal to 3. So we're going to take the reciprocal for them. So sine theta is equal to 3. And then we're going to check what is the value for them. Okay, so try to use your calculator. What do you have for arc sine of 3? Arc sine of 3. Try to use your calculator. What do you see if you use your calculator? Okay, so what you can see over there is either maths error or I don't know yang hitam tu keluar apa. Sekejap, ada tak? Mana entah, lagi satu hilang lah calculator tu. So tinggal calculator ni je kat saya. Okay, tak apa. So if I'm using arc sine of 3, I will get a maths error. Why do they give me a maths error? That is actually because sine theta should be in between negative 1 and 1. So we already verified earlier that when we draw the graph for the sine, the highest point will be 1, the lowest point will be negative 1. Therefore, if you have sine theta equal to 3, that is totally impossible to happen. So what are we going to say is that sine theta is not going to be equal to 3, so this one will be rejected. No solution or rejected. Okay, so we don't need to bother with them anymore, so we just need to look at on the right hand side. Okay, so I have cosecant theta equal to negative 2. So this is 1 over sine theta equal to negative 2. So bring the sine up, negative 2 down. You are going to get sine theta equal to negative half. So betul Abel, negative half. Okay, so now sine theta is equal to negative half. So do make sure to find out what is the basic angle first. Check the quadrant and then check the range as well. Okay, so the basic angle alpha is equal to arc sine of half. So we are going to get alpha is equal to pi over 6. About the quadrant, so ASTC. So we want to get a negative sign. Again, it should either be in the third or the fourth quadrant. So those are the formula for the third and the fourth quadrant. Okay, so that means theta is either pi plus with pi over 6 or 2 pi minus with pi over 6, and then you should simplify them. Just think of a pi just like an A. So you got A plus with A over 6. So they will become A 1 plus 1 over 6. So 7 over 6 A. Macam huruf je lah. Anggap ni macam huruf je. Kalau calculator yang ini boleh kot. Sekejap saya tak pernah try. Cuba try. Pi over 6. Oh, boleh. So, kalau siapa yang calculator macam ni, dia boleh kira lah guna calculator. Siapa yang calculator yang warna hitam tu, kena pandai algebra sikit lah. Okay, so I already got the value for the right hand side. So that means I can actually combine everything together. But since I don't have any answer on my left hand side, therefore my final answer is only the thing on the right hand side. So my final answer will be 7 over 6 pi as well as 11 over 6 pi. So those will be my final answer. Kenapa baca tak ramai hari ni? Hujan kot. Hujan kat tempat awak. Semalam hujan teruk juga. So maybe ada masalah lain kot. Okay, never mind. X. Right, so we have done the linear function, we have done the quadratic function. So now we are going to see how can we solve if we have a mixture between the sine and the cos. Okay, so how to solve? A sine theta plus minus with B cos theta equal to some constant. So we actually have two methods to solve them. You can either use the t substitution or you can use the other cos and other sine. So t substitution, we are going to learn them today. Other cos and other sine, I will leave that to next week. So in next week class, we are going to learn how to do the other cos and other sine. So other cos and other sine will be very useful, especially when we want to calculate what is the maximum height for our graph and what is the minimum for our graph. So normally if you want to know what is the maximum or minimum for a certain graph, you need to have them in the form of other sine and other cos. Yelah, kalau function tu ada sine, ada cos, dua-dua ada kan, nak follow siapa? Nak follow sine ke nak follow cos? That's the reason why we simply change it into either other cos or other sine, so that we can easily see the amplitude and etc. Okay, so now, right, so what do we do in order to solve A sine theta plus minus with B cos theta equal to C? So the first step is that we are going to change everything in terms of T. So I'm going to teach you how to change everything in terms of T later on. But that is the first step. Just change sine theta in terms of T, just change the cos theta in terms of T. So once you change everything in terms of T, your second step will be you need to solve to find out what is the value of T. And then once you solve for T, you have to go back and find out what is the value for the theta. So that is the basic idea for them. Okay, so how are we going to change them in terms of T? So this is a T substitution. So we are going to let the T equal to tangent theta over 2. And then by using the half angle formula, so this is actually from the half angle formula, tangent theta is actually equal to 2 tangent theta over 2 over 1 minus tangent square theta over 2. So this is from the half angle formula. Okay, so now we are going to replace the tangent theta over 2 with a t, of course. And then this is a square, right? So that is similar to tangent theta over 2 square. So I'm going to replace the term inside here with a t. So this one going to be t squared. Okay, so we are going to get 2t over 1 minus t squared. Okay, so those are tangent theta. But in our question, we actually have a sine as well as a cos. So how can we use tangent theta to get the value for the sine as well as the cos? Okay, so how to get that? Of course, if you remember what we learned in the first lecture, if we have something like this is the ratio, right? So you have to draw your right angle triangle, and then you need to check what is the where is the adjacent, where is the opposite, and what is the value for the hypotenuse as well. Okay, so kah tua, so this is tangent, right? So we have 2t for the opposite, and then 1 minus t square for the adjacent. So kah tua. Okay, so tangent theta is equal to 2t over 1 minus t square. So let us draw the right angle triangle. Okay, so this is a theta, the opposite of them. So this is the opposite of them. So this is 2t opposite. And then the adjacent is below here. This is the adjacent. At the top, those are the hypotenuse. Okay, so what is the value for the adjacent? Adjacent is 1 minus t squared. Okay, so how are we going to get the hypotenuse? So you can actually use the Pythagoras Theorem. If let's say I call this one as a z, therefore z square is equal to x square plus y square. So you take 2t square and then you plus with 1 minus t square and then you simply simplify them a little bit. Then you are going to get that z is equal to 1 plus t square. So we just need to use the Pythagoras Theorem in order to get the hypotenuse value. Okay, so once you get what is your hypotenuse, then you can easily see the ratio for the cos and the sine. So what is sine? Sine is opposite of a hypotenuse. Okay, so sine, opposite over hypotenuse. So the opposite is 2t, the hypotenuse is 1 plus t square. So that's the reason why we have sine theta equal to 2t over 1 plus t square. Meanwhile, for cos theta, cos is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. So the adjacent is 1 minus t square, the hypotenuse is 1 plus t square. Okay, so those are how are we going to change the sine and the cos in terms of t. So actually this is only the first step. The second step, you need to take this sine as well as this cos, the term in terms of t, go back to the sine, go back to the cos, substitute, change everything in terms of t. Just make sure to do that. And then solve for t. Find out t equal to what. And then go back and find out what is the value of theta. Okay, so I'm sure it will be very easy if we can see from the question. Sebab payah kan. Macam mana nak hadam bila kita dengar je kan. This is not a move. This is not a movie, like bukan macam movie, drama ke apa ke. So of course we need to do some calculation in order for us to understand things. Okay, so now if tangent theta over 2 is equal to t, find sine theta and cos theta in terms of t. So they simply want us to do the t substitution. Hence, solve cos theta plus 7 sine theta equal to 5 for theta in between 0 and 180 degree. Okay, so now let's see. We want to get them in terms of t, therefore we simply need to write down whatever that we have in the previous slide. Come back here. Okay, so we're gonna let t equal to tangent theta over 2. And then you are going to use the half angle formula. So tangent theta is equal to 2 tangent theta over 2 over 1 minus tangent square theta over 2. And then you're gonna simply change the tangent theta over 2 to become t. So tangent theta will become 2t over 1 minus t square. And then for trigonometric function, we know so ka tua. So if tangent theta is equal to 2t over 1 minus t square, then it simply means that the opposite is equal to 2t, the adjacent is equal to 1 minus t square. So that means we need to draw our right angle triangle and then try to get the cos and the sine. Okay, so if you draw your right angle triangle, you should be able to see the opposite is 2t, the adjacent is 1 minus t square, and then this is actually the hypotenuse. So how to get the hypotenuse? Of course, you are going to use the Pythagoras Theorem. So just take the adjacent square plus with the opposite square, take the square root for them, and we are going to see that the hypotenuse is 1 plus t square. And from that right angle triangle, we can get the ratio for cos theta and sin theta in terms of t. Okay, so sin theta, sin is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. So sin is 2t over 1 plus t square. For cos is adjacent over hypotenuse. So we are going to get 1 minus t square over 1 plus t square. So that is the first part of the question. So this is quite a long question. So we have done the first part. So do make sure to read your question carefully, okay? So this one just done the first part and now we need to solve them. Okay, so how can you solve them? Okay, so firstly we need to copy down this one first and then copy down the sign and the cos in terms of t and then we are going to substitute them in. Okay, so now I have the sign and the cos ready from the previous answer and then the question is cos of theta plus 7 sin theta equal to 5. Okay, so now what am I going to do is that I'm going to substitute cos theta with 1 minus t square over 1 plus t square and then I'm going to substitute the sin theta with 2t over 1 plus t squared. Okay, so now substitute them in and then what we need to do is that we need to solve to find out the value of t. So I think I'll give you around 3 minutes for you to tell me what is the value of the t. Kena cari nilai t. Rasa macam duduk rendah sangat, kena tinggi. Okay, so now find out what is the value for the t. So saya bagi masa 3 minit lah sampai 8.45 until 8.45. Oh, ramai juga korang yang akan balik. Jom bulan ni 80% akan balik. Okay, 1 more minute. Dah jumpa dah ke? Nilai T dia berapa? Oh, dapat dah. T2 dengan 1/3. Okay. Sekejap lagi kita check. Orang lain dapat nilai yang sama ke? 2 dengan 1/3. Sama? Oh, sama. Okay, so dah 8.45, kita start. Kita sambung lah Okay, so now what are we going to do? Normally, if you substitute the cos and the sine, you should be able to see that you have the same denominator, right? So you have 1 plus t square and 1 plus t square in your denominator. So you can actually times everything with 1 plus t square in order to get rid of your denominator. So you will have something like this. So 1 minus t square plus with 14t equal to 5 plus with 5t square. Okay, so now what we are going to do is that we are going to collect all the term to the left hand side or right hand side. So choose either one. Just make sure one side of them is 0 and then we can use our calculator. Okay, so now we got 6t square minus 14t and then plus with 4 equal to 0. So simplify them a little bit. So 3t square minus with 7t plus with 2 equal to 0. If you can simplify the number first before you use your calculator. Okay, so now 3t square minus 7t plus 2 equal to 0. Factorize them completely. They will give you 3t minus 1, t minus 2 equal to 0, which can mean either t equal to 1 over 3 or t is equal to 2. So very good for Elisha and Odia. Very good. So boleh ni lah. Boleh buat macam ni. Tahniah. Okay, next. Right, so now we got to solve for t. So what is t? So just now we are using some substitution, right? Where we let the t equal to tangent theta over 2. So go back and substitute t is equal to tangent theta over 2. Okay, so substitute t with tangent theta over 2 because this is the substitution that we are using for the first one. So for the first slide for this question, we are using t equal to tangent theta over 2. So tangent theta over 2 is equal to 1 over 3 or tangent theta over 2 is equal to 2. And then of course, this is simply two linear function, right? Therefore, you have to find out what is the basic angle, check the quadrant, check the range, and so on. So if you check your basic angle, then alpha will be equal to 18.43. So if you are using arctangent of 1 over 3, you are going to get 18.43. So just make sure to use at least 2 decimal places for the basic angle. Okay, so tak perlu banyak sangat tau. At least 2 basic, at most lah. At most 2. Nanti sikit sangat pula dah dia buat. Either 1 or 2 decimal place will be okay. Right, so 18.43 and then the quadrant. So we want to get a positive answer, right? So A, S, T, C. So it should either be in the first or the third quadrant. Okay, so if you refer to your range, the question tells you that the theta should be in between 0 and 180. So if we are using theta over 2, because this is tangent theta over 2, right? So I have to divide them by 2. So then theta over 2 is in between 0 and 90 degree. So that means I cannot have any answer for the third quadrant because they should be between 0 and 90 degree only. So I only have one answer for them, which is theta over 2 equal to 18.43. So those are the only answer for the left hand side. Okay, so now making theta as the subject, so of course I have to times them by 2. So theta will be equal to 36.86 degree. Okay, so now on the right hand side, again you have to find out what is the basic angle. So alpha will be equal to 63.43. So this is positive. Again, they will be A, S, T, C either in the first or the third quadrant. But since the range is in between 0 and 90 degrees, so I don't accept any answer for my third quadrant. I only accept my answer for the first quadrant. Okay, so theta over 2 will be equal to 63.43 because those are the answer for the first quadrant. So that means theta will be equal to 126.86 degree. And then the last one is that where you have to combine both answer together. So theta will be equal to 36.86 as well as 126.86. So those are the final answer. Okay, so for T substitution, just make sure to change everything in terms of T. Change everything in terms of T. And then make sure to solve for T. Make sure you get what is the value for T. Once you have what is T, just go back and substitute your substitution, the previous substitution, the theta part. And then make sure to change everything into theta and then find out the theta. And that one will be our final answer. So daripada ada gabungan sin dengan cos tu, so sekarang kita boleh solve dia lah. Kalau tidak sebelum ni, kalau kita hanya menggunakan linear dengan quadratic, we can't actually solve them. So if you have a mixture between the sin and the cos, there are only two methods to solve them. The first one is the T substitution. The second one is by using the R cos and R sin, the one that we are going to learn next week. Okay, so I think that's it for today. No more for lecture, I think. Okay, so I'll see you guys later untuk tutorial. So jumpa je lagi I'll give you the link later. So don't forget, please key in your attendance. Jangan lupa key in attendance. Bye-bye semua orang.